Welcome into the CounterPunch podcast here with Cracked Rackets. I'm your host, Richard Mai, alongside Archit Surach. It's been a long night for us today, but we're ready to continue our Wimbledon singles draw breakdowns with our women's singles draw. We're very excited. It's a lot of content for us to get through. So, Archit, I hope you're ready to dive right into things.
Absolutely ready. We've got a doubleheader rolling for you guys. You know what? You know what they say. It was so nice. We just had to do it twice. Hopefully, our women's show will go about the same length, but knowing us, we're a little long-winded. Now we're in rhythm. Hopefully, we can keep this under an hour, but let's do it.
Let's get right to the first quarter of the draw. I just want to start out by saying, listen, it is not a hidden fact that I am an Iga Swiatek fan, and I keep that I do my best to keep that out of my commentating duties. I try to keep that more on my personal enjoyment of the sport level. But I have to say, just because facts are facts, America, whatever draw gods exist have not been kind to Iga Swiatek over the last two Grand Slams. Definitely not at Wimbledon. Iga Swiatek, your number one seed, starts her campaign off with Sofia Kenin. Deja vu? Like, how many times is she going to play Sofia Kenin?
Well, listen, listeners, I have no skin in the game. Like, I am not an Iga Swiatek fan. I don't really have many players left in tennis because all of them have retired now. I don't really have that many players left that I'm a fan of. But even I can admit this is a bad draw for Iga. And her fans, commiserations to you.
If I had a nickel for every time Iga Swiatek played Sofia Kenin in the first round of a slam in 2024, I'd have two nickels. It's not a lot, but it's pretty crazy that it happened twice. This is just first not fun for her.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting right into it. Interestingly enough, remember last year what happened when Sofia Kenin drew a seed in the first round, Richard? Care to remind everyone of what happened?
I really don't want to.
Well, for those of you who didn't know,
I'll let you handle it.
Nice upset for Sofia Kenin over Coco Gauff. She'll be looking to repeat that same result here over Iga Swiatek, the world number one. Can she do it? That's an interesting question. I'm going to lean no. Like, I think Iga has enough to get through that match. And after that, I know it's tough, but it's still pretty manageable for a couple of rounds. And then I think it gets a lot tougher once we hit maybe the fourth round, where her projected opponent would be Yelena Ostapenko, which is a tough matchup for her. I don't think Iga's ever beaten.
Who she's 0-4 against.
Exactly. The numbers say it for themselves. She's never beaten Ostapenko. She's lost to her at slams.
Anyone that's watching this on YouTube is seeing me go through the emotions of a fan of the sport when you're looking at somebody's path to a final. Let's talk about, like, even up to the quarterfinals. You start with Sofia Kenin, you get past Sofia Kenin, and then you're looking up against a potential Petra Martic, who is going to push Iga in her own right. You go past that, Siniakova, a pretty decently informed Yelena Putintseva.
Yulia Putintseva.
Sorry, yes. Yulia Putintseva. Sorry. I'm thinking of Ostapenko already. I'm already scared of Penko. And Angie Kerber. To me, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm genuinely going to say, of those three, if you're Iga Swiatek, the one you actually want to see might be Kerber.
Yeah.
Kerber might be the one you actually want to see. Putintseva's been pretty good, had a pretty good grass season this year. Siniakova has been playing pretty well in her own right. Angie Kerber might be, of the three, who you want. Obviously, I think Iga would like to see Sakusic, but, I think
the realistic possibilities.
Yeah. Fourth round, Yelena Ostapenko. If Iga is, honestly, I would like Iga to finally get over the hump of Yelena Ostapenko and finally beat her once. But Ostapenko is very good. She's a very heavy hitter. It is the game style that I will continually say is what works against Iga Swiatek. You need a heavy hitter that can hit flat into the baseline that will be hard for Iga to take control. It is why Iga has had issues with Yelena Ostapenko, with Elena Rybakina, with even to her own extent Krejcikova. The matches that Sabalenka has beaten Iga have been matches where Sabalenka was really confident and was hitting those kinds of balls that are heavy, flat to the baseline, really penetrating, and hard for Iga to get over the ball, take advantage. So Ostapenko is scary for Iga Swiatek, point blank, period. You look at the quarterfinals, and it's Marketa Vondrousova, your defending champion. Yeah. And if it's not Vondrousova, it is still the next 3 seeds that are in this quarter for her are players that Iga knows well and does not always have a very fun time with. Danielle Collins, Bia Hadid-Maya, and Barbora Krejcikova, who I just mentioned. This is not a great draw for Iga. This is not at all. Not to mention the fact that of all of the 4 seeds, of all the three seeds that could have been in her half, she drew the one she has the most difficulty with on this surface. And literally any surface other than clay in Rybakina.
I agree. That's probably the toughest matchup in the women's game right now for Iga. I know the head-to-head with Sabalenka is roughly 7-2, 8-2 in Iga's
8-3, I think.
8-3. Okay. 8-3 in Iga's favor, but we talked about this pre-recording, but Rybakina and Ostapenko are one of the few players who have winning head-to-heads over Iga, who have played her more than once. And it's rotten luck that they're both in her quarter, or at least in her half, right? It's so tough because there's a world where you can envision Iga getting through these, and that looks like she's hitting the backhand phenomenally well, right? The forehand the risk is mitigated even with her extreme grip. Like, she's not really letting the pace get to her on that wing, and she's having a good serving week, and she's moving well. There's certainly ways where you could envision yourself seeing a deep Iga Swiatek run, but it just becomes so much harder in this case when you have players who are almost built to beat her, in a sense, where you have your Ostapenkos who on the right day just can flat out demolish anybody, right? Is going to hit missiles from the back of the court and just stand and deliver and just knock Iga off her spots. And similarly, same thing with Elena Rybakina, right? Where she's just going to have a great serving day. Her returns are even better on this surface just because of the depth and how flat she hits the ball. Just the ability it has to get up on Iga fast and stay low as well could be really difficult for her to deal with, especially on this surface. So
the difficulty with grass is that this is a surface that negates all of the standout highlights of Iga Swiatek's game.
Exactly.
The extreme grip topspin forehand with that extreme Western grip, that is negated. Her something that I like about her serving is her second serve and how much kick it has. That is also negated on this surface. And most importantly to me, and I literally said this earlier today to somebody, to me, Iga Swiatek is top 5 best movers in the history of women's tennis, hands down to me. And that is negated on this surface.
I agree. You won't hear
one thing that you said that in part of like what Iga needs to do to have a good time here at Wimbledon, that to me stands out as what if I'm Iga, this is the number one thing that really needs to be on point is her serving. Last year, she had a decent time at Wimbledon, partially, in my opinion, because she served really great.
I agree. And, interestingly enough, like you mentioned that her second serve is really negated on this surface. That's true. I actually think she gets a little bit more out of the first serve just because she hits that slider wide really well and it stays low. And just her ability to kind of start on her own terms and really get that first strike in the rally and grab hold of the point. She has a greater advantage there, and her backhand almost is accentuated on this surface because of how flat it is, how well she hits it, the amount of depth she gets on it, how good she is at like understanding how to approach it from a low contact point where it's at her ankles, but she still scoops it and drives it really well across. I think there are real strengths for Iga on the surface, but I agree it's where the things that make her special are just almost completely washed out on this surface.
This is the surface where she needs to really hone in and take advantage of the underrated parts of her game. I don't know how many opponents are going to know how heavily you really need to attack the Iga forehand, because so many players are used to attacking the Iga backhand because Iga's backhand is strong but weaker than her other shots, but more consistent. So it is why a lot of players will go there. I personally love her flat backhand. I think it's really nice and I really like it. I think she needs to really step into that more. This is a surface where the parts of her game that tend to go unnoticed is really what you need to put on full display here.
Yeah, I agree. She's almost going to have to put on a clinic in terms of just offensive tennis and just her ability to kind of almost in a Daniil Medvedev-like way outmaneuver players from the back of the court. Obviously not from as far back as Medvedev does, but she could, honestly, I could see a way where she is just so solid from the back of the court and just absorbs pace really well. She has to, in my opinion, not get caught into the if you go big, I go bigger, because I think that is where she has really struggled, especially in the matchup with Ostapenko and Rybakina, where they really rush her and she kind of lowers her margin for error and she goes for lines a bit more to try and take control of the points. I think she almost has to try and get herself to do the opposite and just hold steady, be Djokovic-like, and just be a brick wall from the back of the court and just redirect everything cross. Again, this is very hard to do, and it takes a level of forehand preparedness that she's never shown in her career to this point. I think she's capable of it for sure, but the pace absorption on that side needs to be a lot better. And I'm not saying I would necessarily pick it is all, but it's Iga. I don't like to bet against her at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I've enjoyed talking about Iga Swiatek for 10 minutes, I will end it with this remark. I see the potential in Iga Swiatek having a very Pete Sampras-esque Grand Slam record where you do really well at 3 slams and then there is one white whale that you could not capture. And for Pete, that was the French. For Iga, I think it might be opposite because you are living in an Elena Rybakina world, and we all know how good she is on grass. This is a surface that suits her game very well, and I think there is a world where this is the one slam that she cannot capture. I most likely see her with a more Roger-esque career where you do capture that one, but you get it once and you really savor it. You know what I mean? With Rogers' 2009 French. This is where I'm saying I don't see her being a mainstay with Wimbledon. I see her focus more on the other 3, like we mentioned with Casper Ruud in our last pod, where this may not be his surface, and he has said there's no intention for this to be his surface. Not to say Iga has no intention for grass to be her surface, but this just might not be the one compared to the other 3 slams where she's dominant.
Yeah.
With that said, we mentioned Rybakina. Before we get to her, let's talk our defending champion, Marketa Vondrousova, which saying Marketa Vondrousova, our defending Wimbledon champion, is a sentence that, not to say Vondrousova is not a great player, because she most definitely is. We're sitting in our bedrooms and she is a Wimbledon champion, but was not a sentence that I thought I'd be saying a year ago, but we are. And she has drawn herself not the prettiest of draws either, with a potential 3rd round of Barbora Krejcikova.
Yeah. It's interesting because there was a period where we thought Vondrousova might not even be able to defend her title with the injury scare that she had, but it looks like she's in great form now, playing well, fully healthy. Well, essentially fully healthy. You got to hope that that continues over the course of these 2 weeks if she's to try and make a deep run. It's interesting because in some ways it doesn't feel like she is a defending champion, right? Because there hasn't been the glitz and glamour. Because even if you remember, like for Rybakina, there was still that period where it was like, okay, Elena Rybakina's won a slam now before, and then she consolidated it by just being so incredibly consistent week after week and was a top 3 player in the world and was an elite of the elite player, made the WTA finals. Marketa Vondrousova hasn't really had that level in her, but not to say that many people expected it and not to diminish what was an incredible 2-week stretch from her. She's been very consistent. She's played well since then.
That is also something that we have said multiple times in the past with slam winners on the women's side of the tour, right? This is not a new phrase for us. I mean, it's just I think we've gotten used to the dominance of Serena Williams and the big 3, where you tend to have this glitz and glamour post win, and this, it's a jumpstart to a great this and that. And you even look at our childhood era and you look at those players, that's where you do see a lot of like the players where it's like one and there's not too much, overly glitz and glamour, but you had players that snuck in, took a slam from Serena, and then we're still top 3. We're still continuing your Azarenka, Sharapova, Kim Clijsters, Li Na type. But you do have a lot of these players where there is like you take one and then there's not much glitz and glamour post. And to me, that is, I will say these first 2 names first because in all defense, there is a star by their name that they did retire right after they won, and that's Flavia Pennetta and Marion Bartoli. Yeah. But there's also Yelena Ostapenko, 2017 French Open. There's Sloane Stephens, 2017 US. You go a little bit earlier to really our childhood. Francesca Schiavone, 2010 French. You could even go as far as to say Sam Stosur, 2011 US. This is not uncharted territory. You even go to the more recency of Bianca Andreescu. Granted, that was due to injury, but you do have these moments, and it's much more common on the women's side than the men's, where you do have a one and done. Not to say this will be Vondrousova's story, but it's possible. And I think because we're talking about the women's tour, it doesn't hit me as shockingly as it would if it was the men's, because we haven't had this type of a men's winner in a while. Yeah. Unless you want to count Dominic Thiem, but you can blame that on injury. You can blame that on injury.
And he also made multiple slam finals prior to that.
True.
And was an elite player for a little bit. Another name that you forgot to mention was Barbora Krejcikova, who's in this section of the draw, right? And it's really tough predicting anything out of this quarter because you feel like either of these players could go on a real run here if they were able to garner some sort of momentum and craft together a couple of wins. And then you have another player who's been elite of the elite this year in Danielle Collins, right? Who, in my opinion, probably been the 5th best player in the world behind the consolidated big 4, if you will, of
this year.
Tour. Yeah. Of the WTA Tour. But then you think about it, and it's not exactly Danielle Collins' favorite surface, right? She hasn't really cracked the movement on grass. The serve return dynamics are a little bit more different, takes the racket out of her hands a little bit. She can't be as aggressive with the backhand as she normally is. It's just a lot of things. And I think just the biggest thing has been the movement, right? Like she's never felt fully comfortable moving around on a grass court. So it's not like you would even say she's a real favorite to come through this section as well. So I have a hard time picking this quarter. It honestly, it's pretty open, I would say.
To me, this is regular schmegular. If you want to do this a little differently from the men and just give quarter predictions as we finish them, I'm saying it right now. Mine is Iga Swiatek over Marketa Vondrousova. I'm taking my chances, and I'm going to be gutsy, and I'm going to take Iga Swiatek to actually do damage at Wimbledon this year. I think last year, what I saw in her from the year prior to last year, she was a lot better with that movement. She had a much better understanding of movement on this grass, and she made the quarterfinals. So she had a few matches to really understand that, and I think she has a better understanding now. I also think that she garnered a better understanding for what weapons work for her, what works, what doesn't. It's a big thing because her weapons work on a hard court and on a clay court, but they don't. But those weapons don't translate to the grass. And so I think she did a good job in understanding how that, to me, it all comes down to the serving. It is if she is having a good serving week or not. If she is, she could genuinely win this tournament. I think the
Absolutely.
movement is there, weapons, she's gaining that understanding and starting to utilize it. It comes down to the serving for me.
Yeah. I just think a lot of things have to come together for her to really win this tournament, but it's also Iga. So like, I wouldn't be shocked if everything comes together for her, you know? And it's tough because she's a former junior champion here. It's not like she doesn't absolutely know how to play on grass.
Yeah.
Now, of course, she's mentioned that she might have just been a better player than them, not necessarily a better grass court player at that level. And that's kind of been the transition of understanding how the movement differs, what weapons work, how to, counter how people attack her forehand here. It's tough because I think if the seeds hold and she gets an Ostapenko matchup in the fourth round,
it is
like that's a really tough matchup.
To me. That matchup to me is what the matchup with her and Naomi Osaka meant to me at the French.
I agree.
The minute Iga won that match, my first thought was she's winning this tournament.
Yeah.
It's not as simple and clear cut here.
Yeah.
But that match win would be a huge confidence boost in not only her, but also everyone around her, that she could do heavy damage and she could make a really deep run, like really deep.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And again, Richard has not talked me into this, but I am going to go Iga just because it's so tough to beat Iga Swiatek 5 times in a row and not lose to her, right? And that's a tough ask, even for Ostapenko, whose game actually fits like the way to beat Iga.
It has progressed a lot since that French Open win, and that is scary to anybody.
Yeah. And like week in, week out, she's a far better player than that player who won the 2017 French Open.
Yes.
But she just caught lightning in a bottle for those 2 weeks. And honestly, she still has it in spurts, and she still does it. It's tough to put that together for a 2-week stretch, but
I think Ostapenko's win at the 2017 French Open is quite circumstantial to me because it was the right surface, right time, right place. It just, everything fell into place for her. Now you are living in a world where you have somebody that can dominate on every freaking surface, and it is annoying. On a hard court, it is Iga and Sabalenka and Rybakina. All 3 of them are going to whoop you left and right. On the clay,
I would throw Coco.
I would throw Coco in there. I would throw Coco in there for sure. On the clay, it is Iga, Sabalenka, and you can throw Coco in there too. On the grass, it is Coco and Rybakina. This is the difficulty.
Sabalenka is quite an accomplished grass player as well. True, you would have to say.
True. I would just say that she's better on clay.
Fair.
I feel. I don't know. You can. That's debatable. But when you look at that 2017 French Open, you don't have somebody that was as dominant on clay the way Iga Swiatek is now. Simona Halep was great on clay. Was not as dominant as Iga Swiatek. There were windows to crack through. If you had this Iga Swiatek back then, I am convinced would not have won. But everything came together at the right time, at the right place for her, and it worked. And she's a Grand Slam champion, and we can't dispute it. She played great. You said it, lightning in a bottle for 2 weeks. So we give her the credit we can.
Yeah. With that said, my quarterfinal prediction here, I'm gonna go with the same as you. I'm gonna say Iga beats Marketa Vondrousova there.
I'm glad I got you over to the dark side, but we have to look at this. I don't even know what this quarter of the draw is. The more closely you look at this second quarter, the more of a gauntlet it becomes. Let's read off a few names in this quarter. Elena Rybakina obviously starts you off strong. 2021 champion here. Caroline Wozniacki can be quite tricky. Alicia Parks deserves a shout out. You go the next match further. You have Leylah Fernandez. You take it down further. Anna Kalinskaya, who had a pretty good Wimbledon warm up season. You keep going down and down. You get to Samsonova, no person to be glossed over. Go one match further. Ons Jabeur. This just keeps getting worse and worse. A two-time finalist here now who is very sneaky and is somebody that I'm heavily considering as to what I will be picking. You go down even further. This match to me is one of the sneaky ones that I think will be a great match. Magda Linette versus Alina Svitolina. Magda Linette, I know her game really well, plays really nice flat tennis, really good flat ground strokes. If she's on her day and her ground strokes are consistent, could do damage on a grass court. You look across the net, you have Alina Svitolina. Holy wow, has she had a great return from motherhood. We've talked about it a lot. Great performance at Wimbledon last year. I believe she's the one who knocked Iga out in the quarterfinals, if I'm not mistaken. We know she can do damage. Take another look down. Katie Bolter, another great Wimbledon warm-up season. I'm just ranting now because you got one more if you go 3 matches down, Jessie Pegula.
Yeah.
To me, this quarter is because every draw has a hell quarter. This is your hell quarter to me.
Yeah. It's so tough. Like there are matches here where you don't know what you're doing, right? Like I honestly think Katie Bolter's a real shout here. Playing really well. It's been so consistent throughout the year. Could make a deep run at a slam here. Obviously, we know how consistent Jessica Pegula has been throughout her career. Finally back from injury, started out with a bang, right? It's so tough. Jessica Pegula is playing incredibly well. I
have mine.
I think I have mine as well. I think I'm gonna lean. Well, actually, before I do, I want to give a quick shout out to Leylah Fernandez because I think she's playing probably the best tennis she's played in quite some time.
Let's say since that U.S. Open final.
Yeah, maybe not the highest level. Maybe not the highest level we've seen since then, but definitely the consistency week to week, the level she's put together. I would agree with that. I think Leylah Fernandez is playing some really good ball. Yeah, I'm gonna go Rybakina over Jabeur in my quarterfinal here.
Why? I was gonna say that too. I have a repeat of the 2021 final. Rybakina over Jabeur. I think it's too. You know what? Just to be different, I'm gonna do that same matchup, but I'm gonna take the opposite. I would like to see Ons Jabeur finally crack this ceiling. You know, capture the white whale. This is like, I think people that root for humanity are currently rooting for Ons Jabeur. Like,
yeah, it's tough.
This is the lovable one that you really just want to finally capture her moment. And this, I hate to say it, but the truth of the matter is, in all brutal honesty, this is not the draw for her. This is not this year. This is not her draw. You get out of your first 2 matches, great. You get to your 3rd round, and you are looking at potentially Magda Linette or Alina Svitolina. I'm not a fan of that. You get past that, you're probably looking at either Katie Bolter or Jess Pegula. Also not a fan of that. You get past that hump, and you're probably looking at somewhere between Leylah Fernandez, Caroline Wozniacki, and Elena Rybakina. Again, not a fan of that.
There's just no.
I also think that if Ons Jabeur gets to that quarterfinal, overcoming all of those players will be a great confidence boost. My only worry is that it'll tire her out if she gets bad scheduling. This is this is such a tough draw. And if you get past Rybakina, you are looking at probably some combination of Iga Swiatek or Yelena Ostapenko or Marketa Vondrousova. This is not a fun draw for Ons Jabeur.
Yeah, it's particularly tough. And just with the physical concerns, obviously her fitness hasn't been as up to par as she would like over the course of this year. It's so difficult to rule out Ons Jabeur at Wimbledon. She's been probably the most consistent grass court player in the world for the past 3 to 4 years, right?
Yeah. 2 Wimbledon finals. I mean, nobody's done that one.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate because everyone loves Ons Jabeur, and everyone would love to see that story. And
there's a reason
finally.
There's a reason why her nickname is the Minister of Happiness. Like this is just Ons Jabeur. But I will say, I think everybody is enjoying how well she's been playing, and it's very fun to watch her. It's enjoyable to watch her play because she is so happy and she does spread that joy so infectiously. I don't know. I think, irregardless, I think this will be a decent run for her. I don't see her. There is a world where she drops before this point, but I don't see her dropping before the quarters. It's just, you look at the third round on for her, I would dare to say that she has I'm just gonna say it flat out. She definitely does. She has, in my opinion, third round on as tough as a draw as Iga Swiatek. Like it is Svitolina,
100%.
then Jess Pegula, then Rybakina in the projection. That is
100%.
That's just we're getting to a point of just disrespectful. Like this is painful for poor Ons Jabeur. But if she puts up a good quality of tennis, this could be good for her. She knows how to move on this surface. She knows how to play to her strengths on this surface. This could be good for her. She's got the tricks in the book. So we move on to the third quarter. This quarter is it is all. I feel like this Wimbledon, it is always the third quarter. This happened to us with the men. It's happening again with the women. The third quarter is just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's just,
I agree.
It's just a cluster mess of a bunch of different names.
I agree, but in some ways at the top of it all is Aryna Sabalenka's name. And you just feel like the rest of the seeds in this section and the rest of the unseeded players in this section might just beat up on each other so much that it doesn't matter and she just gets through. Because
that's true.
In some ways, I feel like she's underperformed on grass relative to her regular level, where I understand why her ground game isn't as successful on a grass court as it is, and those skills aren't as transferable as they are to other courts, right? Where her high and heavy ground strokes and just the pace and the athleticism with which she moves aren't as effective, but her serve should just be getting her so many more free points on the surface. Her attacking mindset should just, really be giving her a few more options. And it just I think this is just her quarter to lose. But at the same time, there are a lot of worthy candidates who could upstage her and make this their story in this quarter.
Wimbledon isn't even her worst slam. It's the French.
Yeah.
Like, her last 2 appearances here were both semifinals. That cannot be discounted. With that said, you are looking at a quarter where her potential 4th round is Mira Andreeva, who just took her out at the French. It also includes Karolina Muchova, who is very tricky and can cause some difficulty for Sabalenka. Also, Kasatkina, Sakari, Emma Raducanu, who her plus the backing of this crowd. Oh boy. Very fun first round, Taylor Townsend and Pavlyuchenkova, and then Zheng Qinwen, who also has caused her own fair share of problems for Aryna Sabalenka.
100%. We'll get to Emma Raducanu in this portion of the draw because I think I've got a prediction that I'm probably going to regret. But I've just been very impressed with the level that I've seen. I wish she had been able to back it up, though, after getting her first top 10 win over Jessie Pegula last week. I wish Emma Raducanu had been able to sustain that level and that form. And that's what makes me very hesitant. But at the same time, I've seen her make a second week run here, right? I've seen her win a slam from qualies, right? It's so interesting, her career progression. And I almost feel like she's accomplished so many things in reverse that now might be the time to start picking her to win first and second rounds. And like now she's finally healthy. She's playing herself into good form. Like we know she has the level.
2 matches against Sloane Stephens and Jessie Pegula at Eastburn were proof that we are starting to get back the Emma Raducanu that we had before.
Yeah. And to be fair, did we really have her before, or was that the outlier performance to her base level? Because in some ways that was way ahead of schedule, right? Like, because at the time she was being discussed as a promising teenager who in a few years of development could be contending for slams. And she jumped the gun, right? And not in a negative way, but she kind of peaked a little early. And now she's struggled to maintain that form, and she's been labeled as a one slam wonder. But in some ways, you look at it, and if you just disregard that, and you just look at a prospect who's maybe lost a year due to injury and hasn't been able to find form, we'd be looking at her previous results as, oh, these are signs of life. Like if you disregard her slam results, now you're looking and you're like, you know what? Maybe she's starting to find it again. And maybe because she's at her home slam on a surface she's comfortable moving on, there's a real opportunity for her to make a deep run here, which is why, as I've now led into this pick, I'm going to pick her to make the quarters, which I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm already regretting it.
Yep. But this is gutsy.
But I'm going to say Arena Sabalenka to beat Emma Raducanu in the quarter is my prediction here.
That would not be a quarter. Or that would actually no, that would be a quarter. I saw that incorrectly. Difficulty for me is that her third round is projected to be Maria Sakkari. Her fourth round is projected to be most likely Zhang Qinwen. Both matchups that are going to be tough for her. The way she's been playing, the way she's been playing over the last 2, Wimbledon warm-up tournaments that she played, in addition to the backing of the home crowd, which I think, like a Jack Draper, she can also do well in feeding off of that crowd. I could see it happen. I think of her fourth round, she might be the better pick here to actually make the quarterfinals. But I personally will go. I'm going to take Zhang Qinwen to beat Raducanu in the fourth round, and then to lose to Sabalenka in the quarters.
That's very fair.
The very crazy part of me wanted to say Emma Raducanu versus Mira Andreeva. But I'm going to save that craziness for the fourth quarter. Because the fourth quarter has got some names, man. This is also not a fun quarter whatsoever. So let's talk about it here. New top 10, new Grand Slam finalist, Jasmine Paolini starts you off, and then it's just a slew of some very tricky and fun names to see. Bianca Andreescu being one of them. Marta Kostyuk, shout out to Peyton Stearns, Maddie Keys, Vika Azarenka, and Sloane Stephens face off in the first round, which is bound to be fun. Karolina Pliskova gets Diana Schneider, a name that, again, Archit and I know very well from that college circuit. Naomi Osaka is in this quarter as well. Emma Navarro, Sorana Cirstea, and of course, new world number 2, Coco Gauff. What a quarter for Coco.
Yeah,
What a quarter for Coco.
Yeah, in my opinion, good draw for Coco Gauff. She should be looking at minimum second week, right? Like her expectations should honestly be much higher. Her expectations should be I'm winning this tournament.
Expectations, yes. The one thing that scares me here for Coco is Naomi Osaka. We saw the damage that Naomi did to Iga on the surface that she is the least comfortable on. And now you are putting Naomi Osaka on a surface that suits her game quite well. I think her game is best suited to hard court, but this is a surface that really suits her flat strokes really well. You look at Naomi's to me, Naomi Osaka has always been just a joy to watch. I love her technique. There's something about her ground strokes and her technique on her ground strokes and the way they look that I just love. They're so sharp, so clean. They're flat, which is going to skid on this, and which will and has skidded on this grass like nobody's business. If Osaka is playing at the level that she played at the French, I could 100% see Naomi Osaka as a Wimbledon finalist this year. If
Wow,
I will go there. I will go there. Because I think if she gets to that point, it's another one of those things where if she gets to that point where she gets to the semifinal, I think you have built so much confidence there. She got confidence alone from taking Iga to 3 sets on clay. Imagine how much confidence she's going to get if a year after her return to tennis, I don't think it even has been a year, she makes it to the semifinal of Wimbledon. I think that can carry its own weight. And she's not looking across the net and seeing Elena Rybakina or Marketa Vondrousova or Ons Jabeur. So I'd feel pretty high if I was Osaka.
yeah. There's certainly an opportunity. Personally, I think a lot of this is just a build up until we get to the North American hard court swing, where I think she'll really hit her stride. Don't get me wrong, she's definitely capable of making a deep run here. She's still not super comfortable moving on this surface, but I think there was a switch that flipped when she came back where she realized that her aggressive tennis can still work on the grass. Like her power tennis, her ability to just take the ball into her own hands and just control every point with her firepower, that works. That is a winning formula for her. I think she figured that out and she's slowly starting to get a lot better on the grass. I still just kind of lean Coco in this matchup, which feels weird to say that Coco is a more experienced player on grass than Naomi Osaka because she's so much younger.
At least in recent years, in recent times, absolutely, it's not a stretch.
I just think there's going to be an adjustment because this is Naomi Osaka's first time at main draw Wimbledon since the 2019 championships.
True.
And I just think there is an adjustment period to be had there where I actually think she can win a couple of rounds, but there are certainly players who can trouble her up until that point. But I think Coco would get through that match if they were to face off. And then to me, Vika's an interesting one. Sloane Stephens as well, but Vika could be really interesting. But the two names I'm looking at are Marta Kostyuk and Madison Keys, right?
I think I've got mine. And I'm finally going to do something different from you, so don't worry.
Okay. Well, I think I lean Madison Keys in this specific section. I just think there aren't that many opportunities left for her to capitalize on second week runs, trying to reach a slam final. And it's just her power, her ability to strike the tennis ball from both sides. She's played well too at slams, very sneaky player in slams for the past year and a half, I would say. It's been a very consistent run from Madison Keys. I think she's going to capitalize here. I'm going to say she makes the quarters, but I'm going to say Coco Gauff over Madison Keys as my quarterfinal.
For mine, I'm going to take Coco Gauff as well, but I will take her over. Really, because ever since she's come back from injury, she's been pretty good, and I've enjoyed it, and I'm gonna do it. And I think you know where I'm going. And you know what? I told you I'm saving my wild for quarter four, just because this is partially because I see it realistic and partially because I'd like to see this happen. Because again, another enjoyable player, in my opinion, to watch. I'm taking Coco Gauff over Bianca Andreescu. I think it is a very realistic chance. For me, my doubt with Maddie Keys, I love Maddie Keys. My doubt comes in the fact that she can tend to be streaky. And if she's having an off day, Andreescu to me is just more consistent on a match to match basis. I think she's more consistent. The name that you threw out that I also considered, but I just think is not as there as Keys and Andreescu. It is Marta Kostyuk. I think this is Andreescu's opportunity to really put in some good confidence before you go to a slam that you have already won before. This is a good opportunity. Making the quarters at Wimbledon would do wonders to her confidence and to her game. I'm gonna do it. Coco over Bianca Andreescu, which means we both chose. Please
The
tell me we did
exact
not
same.
choose the top four seeds.
We did.
Ladies
But
and
I
gents,
will
welcome
I
to the
will
big
say
four of women's tennis.
I will say we found an intriguing way to get there. Bianca
Yeah.
Andreescu, it's interesting because I would say I'm not really worried about the tennis game. I'm just more so worried about her health. Like, is she
True.
going to be able to last an entire week of back-to-back major level tennis? It's going to be tough. And that's one of the few things stopping me. I just think now she's coming back from injury again. And just like, there's just been so many stop starts, and it's just very tough to garner momentum when you're in that position. So
Yeah.
honestly, if I'm looking at this draw, Marta Kostyuk should be someone who is looking at this as a real opportunity to make some
A
headway.
deep run. Yeah.
Yeah. But with that said,
let's end things off with semis predictions, finals predictions. I would like to start with the other half, with the second half of the draw. Coco Gauff over Arena Sabalenka. Thank you. That's my pick. I'm taking Coco Gauff to that final. I think she is one of the best well-rounded players when it comes to the grass court in this upper echelon of people that we can consider for a Grand Slam title. I'm putting her in the final. I will let you go next as I ponder what I'm actually going to do with this other half.
That's definitely fair. I just look at the matchup and I just think serve wise, I think Sabalenka has it there. Coco has a phenomenal serve, one of, if not the best serve in the women's game, but so does Sabalenka, right? And then forehand to forehand, I like Sabs. I just don't think Coco can really hang with her from that side. I like Coco's backhand in that matchup, and I think she's a better mover. But I just think the bread and butter for Sabalenka here is just going to be her aggression against Coco's defense, which, like, if you're more proactive and you're taking control of the points on a grass court, I'm going to lean in your favor. So I'm going to go with Sabalenka over Gauff. So I'm glad we're at least halfway, disagreeing.
I think we might go full way disagreeing.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and give you my other semifinal prediction, and then you can close this out there. But I'm going to go with Rybakina over Swiatek. I just think matchup wise, it's very, very difficult for Swiatek to have success. I think a semifinal would be a phenomenal run. Like, I think if I was an Iga Swiatek fan, which I'm talking to one right now, but I would be very happy with the semifinal run at Wimbledon. I think it's just a very tough matchup overall. And on a grass court, the things Rybakina can do from a serve and return perspective, that dynamic really helps her there. Just her flat strokes, her ability, her depth, just the pace that she's able to produce so effortlessly. It feels like she'll be able to knock Iga off her spots, get her out of control, and just force Iga's pace absorption to be at a level where I don't think it can get to in this tournament.
True. Being realistic, it's Rybakina beats Coco Gauff and Rybakina wins the whole thing. Obviously the fan in me wants to say Iga all the way, whatever. No, let's I'm a journalist here. I'm a broadcaster. We're going to go the realistic route and be totally honest here. I have Rybakina over Coco Gauff. I think Rybakina on this surface is undeniable. To me, what I like most for Rybakina, regardless of if this is the Ford that happens, regardless of if she's playing Sabalenka or Coco, ground stroke to ground stroke on this surface, I take Elena Rybakina every day of the week. They're flat, they penetrate, they are hard to return back with enough pace and efficiency. If you are beating Elena Rybakina, you are looking for the cracks in the armor. You are looking for those windows and those opportunities to take one step closer and start to regain control of the point. You're looking like for me, I think the most interesting one is Sabalenka versus Rybakina, because with Sabalenka's serve, and the same could go for Coco, because Coco also has a great serve. It's a great window of opportunity to create for yourself where you can put her on the ropes and then take control. It is always going to be about your serve and return game. It is how you start off this point and then your offense defense transition, because at some point you know Sabalenka's got the power of a workhorse, and you know that at any given moment that forehand can send Rybakina into some spiraling trouble. So
I agree.
no, it's interesting, but I think Rybakina is the most well-rounded for this. I think Rybakina wins her second Wimbledon.
I agree with all the points you just made, and that's why picking between Rybakina and Sabalenka in my hypothetical final is just very difficult for me right now. I personally would probably have.
I would pick Rybakina.
I would probably lean Rybakina in this matchup just because of the fact that I think Sabalenka is a more dynamic player. I think she has more in terms of her pace off the ground, but also just the weight of shot and the heaviness. But in some ways, her stroke production and her wind up and how big of a backswing she has on both ground strokes, I think there's a way where Rybakina can easily just rush her with how quickly she's able to get the ball and how flat and low she's able to keep it, but with such incredible pace, where I think she might just be able to overwhelm her just enough in the big moments where, like, that match to me screams Rybakina wins like 7-6, 7-6. And I think, like, overall, Rybakina will be able to do just enough from an attacking standpoint to where she'll be able to overwhelm Sabalenka with the sheer pace and just find a way through. But there's certain, like, I think Sabalenka has a higher top gear where, like, if she's on, then things are scary.
Then good luck. Good luck.
And she could just mow through Rybakina just with the weight of shot and with the pace and everything combined. But I think just the overall stability and consistency and the ease with which she's able to generate power and the fluidity with her movement, like, I think Rybakina should take that one. So
Rybakina to me is just like the beautiful meshing of like an aggressive baseliner with a counterpuncher. The consistency of a counterpuncher and the ability to redirect pace of a counterpuncher mixed with the aggression and the ball placement of an aggressive base. I mean, it's just so well suited for this court, for this surface.
As well as just the purity of her ball striking and how, like, efficient she is as an attacker, and just it feels much more precise. And on a grass court, I lean precision over everything. It's why Roger Federer had so much success over the years. It's why Ash Barty has had success. It's why Ons Jabeur has had success even with her low margin aggression, because she's been very precise. And I think Rybakina has that level. She's shown it. She's won a Wimbledon title. I think she's going to do the same here for her second Wimbledon title.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's the beauty of tennis is we can only sit here and speculate. At any given moment, you know, any of these people that we're talking about could have an off day and it could all go, you know, down the drain. But hey, that's kind of what we're here for. With that said, it's all the time we have for today. It is getting very late. So there is no pushing it forward. We've said what we've got to say. Hopefully we'll be back to give you a mid recap, if not at the end of the tournament. No promises with us. With that said, it's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys for listening. Please stay tuned with us and everything we're doing over at CR. With that said, good night.